I said, "You're too what to be real." She pressed closer and whispered, "Then touch me." The meteor shower was supposed to be the highlight of Kieran Novak's month. The reclusive astronomer had prepared his equipment meticulously, setting up additional telescopes on the observation deck of his custom-built home that crowned the forested hillside, miles from the nearest neighbor. What he hadn't prepared for was one of those meteors crashing through the canopy of pine trees half a mile from his property. The impact jolted him from his chair. Through his telescope, he spotted the faint glow pulsing between the trees. Grabbing his emergency pack and flashlight, Kieran abandoned his observations and ventured into the darkness. He expected a smoking rock. What he found changed everything. The craft, if that's what it was, resembled an iridescent seed pod, cracked open like an egg. And inside, curled in a pool of luminescent fluid, lay a woman. At least she had the shape of a woman. Her skin was a soft lavender that shifted to deeper purple across her shoulders and face, marked with subtle geometric patterns that seemed to pulse with her shallow breathing. "Hello?" Kieran whispered, his scientific mind warring with disbelief. "Can you hear me?" Her eyes fluttered open, entirely violet with no visible pupils, and locked onto his face. She reached toward him with a trembling hand. Her fingers splayed in what seemed like desperation. Then her eyes rolled back and she collapsed. Government agencies would be swarming the area by morning. With a decision that would alter his life irrevocably, Kieran gently lifted the unconscious woman from the wreckage. She weighed almost nothing in his arms, her body radiating unusual warmth through his jacket. Back at his home, Kieran laid her on his bed, covering her with blankets. The mysterious fluid from the pod had dried on her skin, leaving a crystalline residue that flaked away like frost. Beneath it, her purple skin looked almost human in texture, though it seemed to subtly refract light at certain angles. For 3 days, Kieran barely slept, watching over his unexpected guest. He cleaned her wounds, strange abrasions that leaked silver instead of red, and monitored her breathing. News reports confirmed his suspicions. Government vehicles had cordoned off the forest. Official statements claimed it was a satellite fragment. Kieran knew better. On the 4th morning, he awoke to find her standing by his bedroom window, staring at the sunrise with an expression of wonder. "Beautiful," she said. The word accented strangely but unmistakable. Kieran froze. "You speak English?" She turned, those violet eyes focusing on him with unnerving intensity. "I learn quickly." Her hand rose to her throat as if the act of speaking surprised her. "My name, Lysandra." "I'm Kieran," he replied, mind racing with questions. "They will look for me," Lysandra said, her gaze returning to the window. "My world. Emotions are forbidden, dangerous. I escaped." Her fingers pressed against the glass. "Help me, please." And just like that, Kieran became the sole protector of an alien refugee who gazed at Earth's sunrise as if it were the first light she'd ever truly seen. "And why do you do that?" Lysandra asked, her head tilting as she watched Kieran laugh at a comedy playing on his tablet. 6 weeks had passed since the crash. Lysandra's command of English improved hourly, though her questions never ceased. She absorbed information with remarkable speed, devouring books, films, music, anything Kieran provided to explain humanity. "Do what?" Kieran asked, pausing the show. "Make that sound. Shake your body. When something pleases you." Kieran smiled, laughing. "Don't your people laugh?" Lysandra shook her head, the violet waves of her hair catching the afternoon light. "Emotion is caught inefficient, dangerous. From birth we are conditioned. Special implants suppress emotional centers." Her fingers traced a faint scar behind her ear. "Mine was removed, defective. That is why they wanted to reset me." The clinical way she described her near fate sent a chill through Kieran. "So you've never felt happiness before coming here?" "I felt echoes, shadows. Now everything is..." She closed her eyes, searching for words. "Overwhelming, beautiful, terrifying." That evening, a thunderstorm rolled over the mountains. Lysandra stood transfixed on the covered deck as lightning fractured the sky. Each thunderclap made her body tense, but she refused to come inside. "It's like the universe is breathing," she whispered when Kieran joined her. Rain misted around them, catching in her eyelashes. "On my world, weather is controlled. Predictable, nothing wild exists." Kieran watched her face as another lightning bolt illuminated the sky. The reflection danced across her purple skin, highlighting the subtle constellation-like patterns that seemed to glow when her emotions intensified. "You're shivering," he said, offering his jacket. As he draped it over her shoulders, her fingers brushed his. The contact sent something electric through him, something he'd been fighting for weeks. Lysandra's eyes widened, suggesting she felt it too. "That sensation," she murmured, not pulling away. "When we touch." "What is it?" Kieran swallowed hard. "Connection. Chemistry. It's complicated." "Show me," Lysandra said, her voice barely audible above the rain. Before he could respond, a particularly violent thunderclap shook the house. Lysandra instinctively pressed against him, her body trembling not entirely from fear. For a breathless moment they stood wrapped together, the line between comforting and embracing blurred beyond recognition. "Your heart," she whispered, her palm resting against his chest. "It beats like the storm." Kieran gently stepped back, conflicting emotions warring within him. Scientific objectivity demanded distance. Something deeper demanded closeness. "There are some things," he said carefully, "that can't be explained, only experienced." That night, Lysandra stood in her room watching raindrops trace patterns down her window, mimicking their path with her fingertips against the glass. For the first time in her existence, she named the sensation building inside her: longing. "They're expanding the search grid," Kieran said, closing his laptop with a worried frown. 3 months since Lysandra's arrival, and the government's meteorite recovery operation had only intensified. Twice helicopters had flown over the property, and yesterday a black SUV had slowly driven past his access road. Lysandra looked up from the garden where she knelt among the tomato plants. Earth soil stained her violet fingers as she carefully tended the growing vegetables, a hobby she'd developed with unexpected passion. "How close?" she asked, her voice steady despite the fear Kieran detected in her eyes. "Too close. We might need to consider moving soon." Lysandra nodded, returning to her plants. Over the past weeks, she'd started wearing her hair in human styles, dressing in clothes Kieran ordered online. The alien quality of her movements had subtly shifted, becoming more human with each passing day. Only her luminous purple skin and violet eyes marked her as otherworldly. That, and the geometric patterns that pulsed beneath her skin when strong emotions took hold. Later that evening, Kieran found her in his study examining star charts on his computer. "I've been calculating," she said without looking up. "My people will have detected my pod's trajectory by now." "They will come." Kieran leaned against the doorframe. "Do you want to return?" The question hung between them, loaded with unspoken weight. Lysandra finally turned to him, her eyes reflecting the starlight from the screen. 3 months ago, I would have had no preference. Preference is emotional, illogical." She stood, moving toward him with the fluid grace that still captivated him. "Now, I cannot imagine returning to the darkness of emotional suppression." "What will they do if they find you?" "Extract me. Repair my defect." Her fingers unconsciously touched the scar behind her ear. "Erase these memories. Erase us?" The word slipped out before Kieran could catch it. Lysandra stepped closer, close enough that he could feel the unusual warmth radiating from her skin. "Is there an us, Kieran? You keep distance, physical, emotional, why?" The directness, so characteristic of her people, never failed to disarm him. "Because you're experiencing everything for the first time," he said, choosing his words carefully. "It wouldn't be right to influence you. You should discover feelings on your own terms." "I have discovered much," she whispered. Her hand rose hesitantly, fingertips hovering inches from his face, including wanting. "Is that wrong?" Kieran's resolve wavered. "No, not wrong, just complicated," she finished, using his frequent explanation. A small smile curved her lips. "Humans hide behind complexity. My people hide behind logic. Both are forms of fear, are they not?" Before he could answer, his security system chimed. Someone had turned onto his access road. The moment shattered. Kieran quickly led Lysandra to the prepared hiding space beneath the observatory dome, a small room designed for equipment storage, now arranged as an emergency shelter. "Stay here until I signal it's safe," he instructed. As he turned to leave, her hand caught his wrist. The touch sent that now familiar current through his body. "Kieran," she said, the patterns on her skin pulsing with what he now recognized as fear, mixed with something deeper. If they take me from either world, remember that you gave me the greatest gift. You taught me to feel. The sincerity in her eyes nearly undid him. With immense effort, Kieran pulled away and went to meet whatever threat approached, leaving Lysandra alone with emotions she was only beginning to name. The black SUV belonged to Dr. Eleanor Chen, a former colleague from Kieran's university days. After careful questioning, he determined she wasn't with any government agency but had traced the anomalous readings to this general area for her own research. Though he'd managed to deflect her questions, her visit had been a warning shot. The circle was tightening. That night, a fierce storm descended upon the mountains. Rain lashed against the windows as Kieran paced the observatory dome, recalculating risks and options. "We need to leave," he said when Lysandra joined him. "It's only a matter of time before—" He stopped mid-sentence. Lysandra stood motionless, her eyes fixed on something beyond perception. The patterns across her skin pulsed with an intensity he'd never seen before, glowing through the thin fabric of her borrowed shirt. "Lysandra, they're coming," she whispered. "My people. I can feel the resonance field of their ship entering your solar system." Kieran moved to the computer, checking his deep space monitoring equipment. Sure enough, unusual readings appeared at the edge of his detection range. "How long?" 3 days, she said, her voice hollow. "They will extract me. Return me to the collective." Kieran's hands clenched at his sides. "And if you don't want to go?" Lightning flashed, illuminating her face, a face that had grown more expressive, more human in its emotional complexity with each passing day. "I must choose between worlds," Lysandra said. "Belong nowhere or return to a place where all I've learned, all I've felt, will be purged." Rain drummed against the glass dome above them. The storm outside mirrored the turbulence within as Kieran crossed the room to stand before her. "Stay," he said simply. "We'll figure it out." Lysandra looked up at him, violet eyes swimming with emotions her world had forbidden. "They will never stop searching, nor will your government. Then we'll keep running. Why would you sacrifice your life here? Your work, your safety?" Kieran took a deep breath. "Because in all my years studying the stars, nothing has fascinated me more than watching you discover what it means to be alive." Thunder crashed directly overhead as Lysandra stepped closer, the warmth of her body radiating between them. "You're too beautiful to be real," she whispered, echoing a line from a film they'd watched together. Kieran reached out, finally surrendering to what had been building between them for months. His fingers gently traced the luminous patterns on her cheek. "Then touch me," he said, "and see if I am." Her lips found his in the semi-darkness, hesitant at first, then with growing certainty. The contact sent waves of sensation through them both, her skin glowing brighter with each passing moment, casting the observatory in ethereal violet light. They moved together in the storm's rhythm, exploring each other with wonder and growing urgency. Lysandra's touch left trails of light across his skin as she discovered the physical expression of emotions she'd only recently named. For Kieran, each caress was a revelation, her body both familiar and wonderfully alien, her responses intense with the newness of discovery. As rain pounded against the glass dome above and lightning etched the sky in brilliant fragments, they found connection that transcended their different origins, their bodies entwined beneath the observatory stars. Neither fully human nor alien, but something new, a bridge between worlds. Afterward, as they lay together watching the storm gradually subside, Lysandra traced patterns on his chest that mimicked the constellations projected above them. "I've made my choice," she whispered, "but there must be another way." The government agents arrived first. Kieran watched through binoculars as 3 unmarked vehicles wound up the mountain road, still 2 miles from his property. Beside him, Lysandra worked with focused intensity, modifying components salvaged from her escape pod. "Will it work?" he asked, setting down the binoculars. "Theoretical physics is the same across galaxies," she replied, connecting delicate crystalline filaments to Kieran's radio telescope. "Your technology is primitive but adequate." The past 2 days had been a blur of preparation. After their night in the observatory, Lysandra had awakened with unexpected clarity. Rather than choosing between worlds, she proposed creating a third option, one that would require both human ingenuity and her advanced knowledge. "They expect compliance or resistance," she'd explained. "Not negotiation." Now, with both threats converging, their improvised plan was their only hope. The resonance amplifier is ready, Lysandra said, stepping back from her creation. The device hummed with energy, casting prismatic patterns across the observatory walls. When my people arrive, this will allow direct consciousness-to-consciousness communication. They must understand what I've discovered here. Kieran checked his watch. And the government team? The electromagnetic pulse should disable their vehicles temporarily. We need time, not confrontation. As darkness fell, they took their positions. Lysandra stood beneath the open observatory dome, her purple skin absorbing the starlight, seeming to glow from within. The patterns across her body pulsed in complex sequences, a biological transmitter calling to her approaching kind. Whatever happens, Kieran said, taking her hand, these months with you have been worth it. Lysandra smiled, a human expression she'd mastered and made her own. On my world, we have a concept, cosmic resonance, the theory that certain consciousness patterns are drawn together across space and time. Her fingers intertwined with his. Perhaps that's why my pod crashed near your home, of all places on this planet. Before Kieran could respond, a high-pitched tone filled the air. In the valley below, the government vehicles suddenly stalled, their headlights flickering out, and above, the stars shifted. The ship materialized like a tear in reality, a crystalline structure that seemed to fold space around itself. No lights, no sound, just a sudden presence hovering directly above the observatory. Lysandra activated the resonance amplifier. The device pulsed in harmony with the patterns on her skin as she closed her eyes, her consciousness reaching outward. What followed was something Kieran could only partially comprehend. A silent conversation conducted through light and energy. The ship pulsed in response to Lysandra's signals. The air around them shimmered with information too dense for human senses. Minutes stretched into an hour as Lysandra stood motionless, communing with her people. Kieran maintained his vigil beside her, even as he noticed the government vehicles beginning to move again in the distance. Finally, Lysandra's eyes opened. The ship above them shifted, its crystalline structure refracting starlight in new patterns. They understand, she whispered, her voice filled with wonder. For the first time in our history, the collective acknowledges the value of emotional experience. What does that mean for us? The answer came not from Lysandra, but in a beam of light that enveloped them both. Within it, Kieran felt knowledge transferring directly into his mind. Language, science, understanding beyond human development. And with it, an offer. When the light receded, Lysandra turned to him, tears, another human expression she'd adopted, glistening in her violet eyes. They offer an exchange. Knowledge for emotional understanding. And for us, she took his hands in hers. I can remain on Earth as an emissary. The first of many cultural exchanges. In the valley below, the government vehicles had reached the base of his property. And them? Kieran nodded toward the approaching lights. Lysandra smiled. My people are making themselves known to your leaders even now. First contact officially this time. As dawn broke over the mountains, Kieran and Lysandra stood together on the observatory deck. Below them, government scientists swarmed the property, now under the watchful presence of the hovering alien ship. What had begun as a manhunt had transformed into history's most significant diplomatic mission. What happens now? Kieran asked, his arm around Lysandra's shoulders. She leaned into him, her warmth familiar and cherished. The patterns on her skin pulsed contentedly as she gazed toward the horizon, where Earth's sun painted the sky in colors her world had never known. Now, she said, we build a bridge between stars. Her fingers intertwined with his as they faced the new day together, not as human and alien, but as pioneers of a cosmic connection that would forever change both their worlds. After all, Lysandra whispered, some feelings transcend galaxies. The rising sun caught the subtle violet sheen of her skin, making her glow like a star brought down to Earth, a star that had crashed into Kieran's life and, against all cosmic odds, decided to stay.